About the lateness. We're going to talk about good and bad, evil, right and wrong, and sin. These are really fun topics to explore. You might be surprised the number of times the terms good, bad, and right are spoken in our daily life. More frequently than we realize. The words good and right are used so often, I'm not even sure we understand their real meaning anymore. I would bet that each one of us uses the words good and right at least 30 times a day while being totally unaware of doing so. For instance, notice how many times you respond with, yeah, that's right, or yeah, that's good, when responding to someone. We usually speak these phrases to denote agreement, having nothing to do with goodness or rightness. Tied in with the ideas of good and bad are selfish and unselfish actions. So, for instance, we believe that it is right to help and wrong to harm, but also that there is some sort of absolute truth involved in this. So I said there's some sort of absolute truth involved with good and bad. We think there is. In other words, most of us believe that good and bad have something to do with God. So whether using the words good and bad, or good and evil, or right and wrong, it's interesting to inquire if anyone ever really sets out to be evil. Is it not the case that, deluded as someone might seem to be, in our perfect estimation, of course, they always think they are doing right for the higher good? Do not religious zealots happily kill in the name of God because they believe they are doing good? So at the same time that others are doing evil in our estimation, our own actions are never, ever seen as evil. Only those of others, whom we judge easily and readily, because we, of course, are good people who know good from bad, and they, of course, are bad, if not evil people, who don't know good from bad. They don't know how to discern, at least in our minds. And we don't think they are thinking the same things about us or about others. When we identify with something and pursue it in the belief that it is of benefit to us and to others, as most in this world do, anyone who attempts to prevent or obstruct us might be considered bad or evil, at the very least a jerk. Our upbringing determines if we see things their way. And if we don't see things their way, we are right and they are wrong. Their upbringing determines that they see things our way. And if they don't, they are still wrong, and again, bad people. Either way, we are always right and good, while they, the infamous they, are always wrong and bad. Especially if we watch the news, because that's what they tell us to think. That should tell us that what is good for one is not necessarily so for another, but it doesn't, because most of us are myopic to the ways of other cultures. The expression "that's good" doesn't necessarily mean what is being referred to is good at all. It's an expression we use that usually means that I approve, or if being polite and not wanting to offend, we offer the following as a conclusion to their story. Yeah, you're right. Regarding what is good and what is bad and its corollary, right and wrong, we have a ready-made function within our mind that decides what is right and what is wrong. It is called buddhi, B-U-D-D-H-I, the intellect. We've talked about this before. The problem is we don't always listen to it, or know how to listen to it, or even hear it, as it is usually drowned out by manas, M-A-N-A-S, the lower mind, which is totally selfish and self-serving, as it receives its input from the outside world, other people, events, experiences, and of course the news. All of it is taken in by our senses, which, as you may remember, are not the most accurate barometers of what's really happening in the world. Why? Because as input from the outside is received, it is mixed in with our desires and our fears, making it almost impossible to remain objective and make the simple, quiet choice to do what we know is right. Polonius. Do you remember Polonius in Hamlet? He said, "To thine own self be true, as night follows day, that you cannot then be false to any man." So if we are true to ourselves, we can do no wrong to another. The problem is we are not always true to ourselves. Now, to bring us back to reality with a capital R for a moment, all actions, good or bad, happen against a background that is unaffected. Osho puts it this way: sometimes the clouds are white and fluffy, other times they are dark and dreary, appearing against the background of a sky. End quote. Against the background of a sky that is totally unaffected by the activity of the clouds. In other words, the sky remains blue and unaffected no matter what is going on in the clouds. Our real self remains totally unaffected no matter what our personality, the ego, is doing. As humans, we are the clouds. We're getting blown and whipped about in this seeming reality here on earth, while our real self remains calm, at peace, and in love, because it's completely unaffected by any of our stuff. Now, a person's thoughts and actions constitute their role in the play. The play is what's going on in this world. The thoughts and actions, however, have nothing to do with the real self, which, as I just explained, is unaffected by thoughts and actions. As such, it is ultimately meaningless to ascribe any absolute sense of good or bad or right or wrong to thoughts and actions. They have relative meaning only at the level of the play. And it needs to be said that the play tends to be pretty boring without villains, which we all think is someone else. So what I am saying here is, some of you have heard me say over the years that there's no right or wrong or good or bad. And what I just explained is why that is so. Right and wrong, good and bad, exist only at the level of the mind while in the play, in this illusion, the dream, which is where we seemingly are right now. So on this level, in the play, we all think everything here is real, and we all believe in good, bad, evil, right, wrong, up, down, etc. But at the level of reality, the home of the real self, right and wrong, good and bad, and all other terms of dualism are archaic ideas that have no meaning because they have no existence in perfection. As a matter of fact, to go one step further, there are no wholly good or wholly evil people, even at this level. Shakespeare knew this. He wrote, "There is nothing either good or bad, but thinking makes it so." Does that tell us anything? Apparently not, because we're still living the way we live. How much more simple can his explanation be? Shakespeare puts it out there in such simple terms it cannot be mistaken. What he is saying, that even on this level, there is no good or bad, right or wrong, except in our own mind. Religions have difficulty coming to terms with this, particularly the dark side of life. That is, they have difficulty explaining evil with respect to God. Religions are not the only entity that have a problem regarding this. Many people ask the same question. How, they ask, can a God who cares for his creation allow evil to occur? Well, any religion that believes in a separate God, as in God is up there and we are down here, and believes our world is real, is bound to have difficulty answering the question of how God can allow evil to exist. Neither Advaita Vedanta, the philosophy from which I am teaching today, nor A Course in Miracles postulates a separate God. And both tell us that this world is an appearance only. It's a dream. And they ultimately conclude that neither good nor evil have any real existence in reality, because reality is beyond all duality. God is, and is only isness. God is neither good nor bad, and therefore is not responsible for goodness or badness on this planet. Said again, God is not responsible for any goodness in the world. And the same holds true for evil. Good and bad are moral values assigned by the actors, that's us, in this play called life. And they have no absolute meaning. That is no meaning relative to God. We, us humans, are the ones who assigned meaning to God, and that's bass backwards. We don't know ourselves well enough to figure out who we are, and we're trying to assign meaning to God. That's kind of a joke. Now, I would suspect that some of this may be unacceptable to the ears of those listening to these words from the point of view of concepts such as justice and virtue. But remember that all actions, as well as thoughts, have consequence in this world of effect. It's not a world of cause and effect, it's a world of effect only. Our freedom to commit evil or not is determined by our own individual nature, and the law of karma means everyone will eventually reap the fruits of their thoughts and actions. So good and evil are best seen within the context of Advaita Vedanta as follows. Good thoughts are those that point one back to the truth, towards knowledge of the real self, whereas evil thoughts entrench one in the depths of the illusion, taking us further away from the real self or God. We may want to believe that God controls or at least influences our lives, but this is a dream. It is not real and certainly not perfect. God, which is perfect, has no role in our imperfect play. We're going to move on now to the topic of sin. How exciting is this? I was talking about evil before, and because of what some of us were taught when we were children, there is the notion that those who perform evil acts are committing a sin. Evilness in the sense of thinking or doing something forbidden by God. And this is a belief inbred into some of us, although the precise reasons why something was considered wrong or evil were never explained. There were, however, mortal and venial sins that were respectively major and minor. Yahoo! There was original sin inherited at birth just by the mere fact that one was born. For those of us lucky enough to be born into that belief system called a religion, weren't we lucky? Isn't that special? Joking aside, we each have an idea of what is right and what is wrong based upon our upbringing and our own life experiences. Whenever we speak or act, we do so against the backdrop of that value system. At the moment we respond verbally or actively, heck, at the moment we think, there are influences from our value system. So from our intellect that knows the right thing to do, and from our lower mind that wishes to fulfill its desires and avoid its fears. These steer us accordingly. If the intellect wins, we do the right thing. If desires and fears win, we do what we want to do, regardless of outcome. Doing the right thing is the higher road. Following desires and fears is considered the lower road. If the lower road is taken, we may feel guilt. It's another Yahoo moment. Guilt is associated with sin. And there we have it, the unholy trinity of the ego, sin, guilt, and fear. But as noted, if we follow the higher road and act with a clear conscience, we cannot be considered sinful. But for someone else, growing up in a different culture with different teachings, the above noted response may be sinful. The Hebrew word for sin, chata or pisha, means missing the mark. For others, it means not doing all that we can to realize the truth. In Christianity, sin is evil. In yoga, the word avidya or ignorance is used in lieu of the word sin. Ignorance is considered the root of all evil in the yoga philosophy, which implies correction can be made through knowledge, devotion, or good works, 3 of the spiritual paths of yoga. Swami Chinmayananda says sin is the divergence of mind and intellect. In other words, when there is a split within, that is the sin, representing separation, the separation from God. Finally, we think that the most important things we have are our possessions, our health, and our mind. If we think about these, we can only conclude that all of these things are transient. And if we pursue them, we are not only missing the mark, some might consider that we are sinning. The seed of awareness is within us, and it's the most important thing of all, the only thing that will last. Thus, we should be doing all we can to learn about it as we grow and mature into self-realization. That is not saying that we cannot have wealth or health or an inquisitive mind, but if that is the extent of our deepest pursuits, we've definitely missed the mark, and some would consider that a sin. However, in the end, there is no such thing as error, missing the mark, or sin. It is a concept, a belief on this planet, whereby one becomes identified with a guilt-ridden idea. Sin only bolsters the belief in the ego, which is an aspect of self we are attempting to release. Our dharma, or essence, is to do the right thing. If we don't do it this time around, we will have plenty more opportunities in which to figure it out. Now, so far in this exploration of Advaita Vedanta over the past months, many statements have been made, and it's not been lost on me, about how our present view of life is mistaken, including some rather preposterous ones about how things really are. I do not expect everyone to accept everything in this philosophy at face value. So what can we do to appreciate what has been said? What options are available to gain direct experience of the higher self? Clearly, it's no use saying that the higher self is unlimited and eternally blissful when we are convinced by years of experience that we are limited. It is somewhat like psychosomatic illnesses. The patient cannot just be told that their problems are psychosomatic and then expect immediate and full resolution from the telling. So beginning next week, we're going to explore some traditional paths. Not traditional paths from the Westerner's viewpoint, but from the Easterner's lexicon of spiritual paths. So until then, enjoy life, live it fully, go inside at least once a day, and watch your life change from the inside out. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.